Alright, we are live, ladies and germs. Yes, I know this review is coming way later than it should be, but after doing 3 of them on Sunday, I said, you know what, I need to take a little bit of a breather, because I did 3 F1 reviews, and I decided to wait until I had some time to do the Goodyear 400 review. And there's a lot of shit to talk about today. Mainly because there's some news stories from this week to talk about. And this was also a race that used the high horsepower, low downforce package. And it was definitely a bit of a mixed bag, so to speak, from this race. So lots to talk about. So let's get into it. This is the fuel. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the Packer Man, and welcome to today's edition of the Fuel live review of the 2021 Goodyear 400 from the Darlington Raceway, which is now the throwback weekend for NASCAR, because it was originally on the Southern 500, but since Darlington got a second date, they decided to move the throwback weekend to this race and have the Southern 500 kind of be its own thing, which I can understand that. So there was quite a few unique paint schemes and lots of different throwbacks from this race, which I thought was pretty cool. It's nice to see that a lot of teams really like to get into that kind of stuff. So this is the 86th episode of The Fuel. Title of this episode, Slip and Slide, because that's what these drivers were doing all through this race. I really don't know how to feel about this one. It was definitely a mixed bag, because seeing these drivers manhandle these cars like they had to around this tough racetrack was pretty cool for the most part, and it's something that I think we'd all been kind of waiting for NASCAR to do, because I mean it's like that's proper driving, you know what I mean, because a lot of times even the best race cars we're slideways a lot of times throughout this race, and that's what made this race kind of cool to watch. But on the downside to it, there were a lot of points in this race where it was just kind of boring as fuck. And there was a conversation online where it's like, large deficits in between, the leader and such doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad race. And that is true, but there's two problems with that argument. Number one, some people might say, well, there's, there might be an interesting battle for like, 15th or 16th or have you. Here's the problem with that. If it's anything below 12th place, I don't give a fuck, okay? In the grand scheme of things, the battle for 12th on back doesn't mean shit, okay? Especially under this format. Under this format, the battle for like 13th on back just doesn't matter, because this is a win and you're in format, and we've seen in the past that all it takes is a win and you're golden. you know? So, I mean, under the old season-long format, then yeah, it could mean something, because then every point counts, every position matters. Because when you have a full season like virtually every other fucking motorsport in the world does, it makes every race important, even those with a long season like NASCAR does. And it makes every position matter, because that one singular point can make the difference between winning or not winning a championship. But under this playoff format, who fucking cares? You know, all it really takes is a win to, you know, move on to the next round. So, you know, that whole deficit thing, you know, it's like, there's a fine line for it. I mean, let's be honest here. By the end of stage 2, it was like, Jesus Christ, this is just not, this is not going good. Because Truex had, at that point, a 14-second lead by the end of stage 2. And that's just ridiculous. That's nearly half a lap ahead of everybody else. I mean, what the fuck, dude? I mean, were these other teams just on vacation this week or something? You know, that's the I mean, you talk about battles on the track. Well, that's the most important fucking battle in the field, is the battle for the lead, you know? But it also doesn't help that the broadcaster that's showing the races, which in this case was Fox, or I think FS1 in this case, wasn't doing a very good job showing those quote-unquote battles. And I remember an argument from years ago where someone was like, you know, if you didn't watch the race live, then your opinion doesn't mean anything. And it's just like, that is just such a fucking asinine comment to make. As there's a big old truck passing by me. Probably heard that loud and clear. But that is just such a fucking asinine comment to make, because, you know, not all of us are blessed to go to every single goddamn race live. You know, some of us just don't have the time or the money to do that shit. You know, of those that, you know, don't actually do it for a living. You know, some of us don't have that luxury. So the only way that a lot of us can watch, you know, NASCAR and Formula One and IndyCar and all these other motorsports is on television or on the internet. You know, some of us just don't have, you know, the luxury to go to all of these races live. It'd be cool, but it's just not a possibility for a lot of people. So that's just a dumb, you know, argument to make. And, you know, it doesn't help that, you know, the broadcast, you know, sometimes doesn't show all the battles that we would like to see. So that's more indicative of, you know, the people in the broadcast rather than the race itself, you know. But, you know, I still got to factor that in as well. So there's that little opening spiel. But as I said before, Truex, you know, he was dominant in this race. I mean, it was ridiculous how dominant he was. And there were people that were like, oh, after Cole Pern retired, he's never going to win another race again. Oh, really? Because, yeah, while he only won the one race last year at Martinsville, this year he is the only one who has won multiple races. He's won 3 this year. So, don't even give me that shit that, oh, he's not going to win anymore. Bull fucking shit, dude. Like, are you kidding me? For one of the best teams that in NASCAR right now? Like, are you serious? But he was absolutely dominant in this race. He led more than half the race. I think it was like 248 of the 293 laps. He led all but 45 laps in this race. I mean, that's getting damn near close to Coca-Cola 600 levels of dominance. I mean, what I mean is, I think it was in 2016. I wasn't watching at that point, but he dominated. He absolutely spanked the field in that race. He led, I think, all but 8 laps in that Coca-Cola 600. That is ridiculous. You know, a 400 lap race on a 1.5-mile track, or 600 mile race on a 1.5-mile track, 400 laps, and he led 392 of them. Like, that is insane. And this felt a lot like it. You know, but then towards the end of the race it really got interesting, but we'll get into all that when we get into it. But some other headlines. Of course, I was talking about the high horsepower, low downforce package, which certainly served up a mixed bag in this race, but it was interesting for the most part, and I think it would be a better package to go with other than this, high downforce, low horsepower package, which, I mean, it makes it kind of hard to pass. At least with this, I mean, the passes feel a little bit more legitimate. And one thing I will say is that third stage, I mean, the first two stages had like a couple of quick cautions, so it was a little bit messy in that regard. But then that third and final stage went caution free for the whole 100 laps that it was green. And that was something that should have happened the previous week with Kansas. And going back to Kansas for a second, NASCAR basically did this whole spiel, where it's like, well, we were going to throw the caution anyway. And it's like, I don't give a shit if you were intending to throw the caution or not after the pit stop was over. You should have just kept the race green. You should have because they were saying that, well, we want the pit stops to play out naturally, and all this other stuff. Well, you could have just let the race play out naturally instead of throwing a bullshit caution. Because here's an alternative that you could have done, okay? And this would not have taken very much time at all, and it would have kept the race green, and you would have kept the natural ebb and flow of the race in that final stage. What you could have done is that you could have closed pit road for like a lap, and then you could have authorized an official to quickly run out on to the pit lane, grab the tire, roll it back to the pit wall so that the pit crew guys can grab it and go back over the wall. I mean, that literally would take like, what, 10 seconds? I mean, you could have done that, close pit road for that one lap, let the crew member or the official go back over, get the tire, bring it back to the pit wall, and reopen pit road afterwards, and it would have kept the race clean and green. Instead, we had this bullshit caution, and that led to 2 more cautions and some wrecked race cars. Like, was it really worth it at the end? Was it really worth all the fucking backlash? Like, you can come up with all the excuses that you want for this shit, but when you get all this backlash from the fan base, it really makes you ask yourself, was it really worth it to throw that caution? The answer to that is no. But NASCAR, of course, being their usual selves, tries to spin it to where, they try to make the most lamest fucking excuse ever, and it just irritates the living shit out of me when they do that shit. You could have just kept it simple, but no, you had to just go and you had to take something fucking simple and complicate it. I mean, that's basically NASCAR's MO, and it's fucking irritating. I mean, I love the history of NASCAR, and what they've done for the world of motorsports, but oh my god, sometimes it makes me want to stick my fucking head in an oven. Like, some of the shit that they do. Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. I wish they would get their fucking heads out of their asses for once, and hey, maybe, come up with a solution that doesn't involve, something that looks like blatant manipulation of a race. That would be nice. But that's my spiel on that. Moving on to some other stuff that happened this week, some news stories that broke. One of which was the news that Eddie Gossage, president of Texas Motor Speedway, is retiring after the All-Star race. And there's this whole thing on Twitter where Eric Estep is like, you can hate him all you want, but there's no question that he's probably one of the best presidents, track owners, or whatever the fuck else it is, in NASCAR history. No. This is the same motherfucker that had a clause in his contract with NASCAR that said that he had a Texas exclusivity deal with NASCAR and IndyCar, preventing any other tracks within like 100 miles or something of the Texas Motor Speedway from hosting an IndyCar or NASCAR event, which I think includes Circuit of the Americas, by the way. Which I thought was the dumbest fucking shit ever. And then there's also some of the stupid shit that he did, like, he was promising that, there was something that was going to be, fantastic coming to Texas Motor Speedway. and it turned out to be a fucking 7-Eleven on the track grounds. And it's like, who fucking cares about a 7-Eleven? Like, oh wow, you got a fucking gas station on your, track property. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Like, that was nonsense. A lot of us were hoping that, one of the track's dates is going to they're going to host a cup race on like on the infield road course or some shit like that, like what Charlotte Motor Speedway had done, and it's turned into a big event. But in this case, it was just a 7-Eleven. It's just like, dude, fuck off with that shit. And then some of the other nefarious bullshit that he's done, it just makes me, say fuck Eddie Gossage. The guy's a fucking Neanderthal, and honestly, I'm glad he's retiring, because we don't have to deal with his fucking nonsense anymore after the All-Star race. So thank God for that. Good riddance is what I say. Maybe Texas Motor Speedway will improve, but honestly, I think it's beyond salvaging at this point. I mean, at this point, I would probably turn it into like a fucking short track like California's doing with theirs. But that's just me. But moving on, there's a couple of short tracks in Tennessee and North Carolina that had some news stories come out this week about them. One of which is North Wilkesboro. So let me pull this up on the Twitters, because I had this tweet saved. It was about North Wilkesboro. Here we go. So give me 1 second. Display capture. Boom. Okay, so this came out earlier this week, or actually it was a week ago, almost a week ago at this point. But the Wilkes Chamber of Commerce is calling for Speedway Motorsports Incorporated to reopen North Wilkesboro Speedway with the words, "We want you back." But that's not the only thing. Look at this. This tweet was also put out by Camping World CEO and host of The Prophet on CNBC, Marcus Lemonis. And Slap Shoes was in his North Wilkesboro video said, well, that maybe North Wilkesboro needs some crazy millionaire to pour money into it. Seems like Marcus Lemonis is that crazy motherfucker, because then, after this was made public, Marcus Lemonis put out a tweet saying, "I'm willing to invest up to $1 million into the complex and even have a small Camping World store on the property." Yeah, the support is growing big time for North Wilkesboro Speedway, and I think the whole Save the Speedway movement was kind of working. But I think part of it might be Slap Shoes' video as well, kind of bringing, the whole situation to light. Dale Jr. Taking a crew out to pick weeds for iRacing, and then the North Wilkesboro Speedway being featured on the NASCAR Invitational last year. I think that also opened some eyes to it. Now they're getting support from Marcus Lemonis, who's willing to invest into restoring the track. And there are some people like, oh, it's just going to cost too much to restore it. Shut the fuck up, okay? How about we look beyond that? Because here's the thing, okay? Restoring this track will do more than just bring NASCAR back to the area, okay? If you had watched Slap Shoes' video, you would know that ever since NASCAR left 25 years ago, the area surrounding North Wilkesboro hasn't recovered from the fallout, because losing those 2 race dates caused that entire county to lose millions upon millions in tax revenue. That is a lot of fucking money that they lost, over the last 25 years. And the area around the Speedway has never recovered from it. Yes, it's true, as my cat is wanting to get in on the action here. Silly ass. But, resurrecting North Wilkesboro is going to do more than just bring NASCAR back. It's going to help revitalize an entire community. wouldn't that be cool as well? I mean, wouldn't that be worth all the effort and shit? You know, yes, some of the buildings are going to need to be rebuilt. It's going to probably need to repave. You know, some grandstands are probably going to need to be rebuilt and all that stuff, because I mean, it hasn't been used all that much in the last 25 years. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it because the community is going to back it to the hilt. Not to mention that I've heard that the racing was good there back in the day. You know, and it would be another short track to add to the roster. And, you know, let's be honest here, NASCAR fans are just longing for some good news about the sport returning to its roots, which is short track racing. You know, why do you think the Auto Club Speedway is converting to a short track, you know, after next year? You know, why do you think that why the people that, you know, want to see North Wilkesboro come back from the brink? Why do you think NASCAR fans want to see them return to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, which is where we're going to be getting into in a minute, because there was some stuff going on about that one as well. I mean, some people were clamoring for more short tracks, more short tracks, more short tracks. North Wilkesboro fits that bill, and it's a very unique one because it has a unique uphill downhill layout. It goes uphill down the back stretch and then downhill down the front stretch. I mean, there's not very many tracks that do that, that have that kind of geometry. You know? Not to mention, and Slapshoe said this in his video as well, if it was still around today, it would be the perfect venue for Throwback Weekend because it was basically kind of an old school facility. I mean, generally it was a bit of a bare bones speedway, but because it didn't have like a lot of the modern amenities like some other tracks did, but fans liked it like that. You know, and it would have been the perfect venue for the Throwback Weekend, for sure. You know, not to mention the fact that its upkeep cost was next to nothing compared to, say, Texas Motor Speedway. You know, and when it had its final race in '96, I mean, they would have crammed like 60,000 people into that arena. You know, Texas is lucky to even get, you know, a fraction of that now. I mean, they're lucky to get somewhere at 40 to 50,000. They would kill to have North Wilkesboro 60,000. I mean, I can tell you that right now. I don't know if you can hear that, but my cats are wrestling. Little shitheads. But, I mean, that's just my feelings on North Wilkesboro. I mean, I would love to see it come back to the Cup schedule. It's gonna take some work, to say the least. But there are people that are willing to put in the work to get it done. I mean, isn't that worth something? That's just my feeling on the matter. But that's not the only short track that's been in the news recently. Nashville Fairgrounds, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. They've been having some meetings with the local government to talk about, you know, how, you know, they want to bring NASCAR back to the area. They even proposed like a 11 p.m. like curfew for the races and shit like that. So there's been a lot of talks going on about it, and there were some people from the area that were coming in and basically, you know, giving their opinion and all that shit. And, you know, the thing about this was, I mean, originally there were plans to actually bulldoze the Fairgrounds Speedway to create parking for the MLS stadium, which is right next door. And there were some people, you know, that were like, well, there, you know, the concerns about traffic plans and parking, you know, and all this other stuff, you know, which I guess are valid. But the thing is, the track's been there since 1904, you know, and for people to come in and complain about, you know, the noise from the track, it's just kind of fucking selfish. Because it's like, you know, the track was there long before you were. And apparently, there was this one person that's been making the rounds in the NASCAR world about, you know, because they would give these people, you know, time to come up and, you know, either commend, you know, the track for, you know, trying to, you know, get a NASCAR date once again, or there were some people that were voicing complaints and shit. There's apparently this one lady that came up I haven't watched this yet, but apparently this commenter said that there were 5 NASCAR and Formula One tracks in the area, and this doesn't have to happen in the neighborhood. I'm hoping this isn't real. I'm hoping that isn't what she said, because if that's actually the case, oh my god, dude. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to watch this together, and I hope to God this isn't the case here. So I'm going to put the old headset on here. Oh, Lord have mercy if this is actually true. So, display capture. Alright, let's go to this. I'm really hoping this is not the case here. Okay, so here's this lady coming up, and they apparently all got 2 minutes to talk to state their case. So we're going to go through this real quick and see what this is all about.
Hi there, my name is Katie Barnes. I live 3 blocks from the racetrack. That's 37203. I'm already experiencing the nightmare that is about to unfold as a result of the noise that the racetrack produces. I have tried turning my television up to volume 10 and my sound system at the same time. When NASCAR runs, my windows vibrate, it scares my dog, and I simply cannot have an evening to myself in my apartment. There are 5 perfectly operating Formula One and NASCAR tracks that are fully operational, that are available 20 to 30 minutes outside Nashville. There is no other city in the United States that has a NASCAR track or a Formula One track in a residential neighborhood. There is a lot of talk about neglect of the stadium. There is no talk of neglect of the neighborhood that they are about to destroy. This is offensive. This is a neighborhood that we were able to buy into quite easily that is now raising in prices. We are enjoying the property gains, which we do not want to lose. This is a terrible, terrible decision, and none of it should be allowed to be processed and to go through. I'm appalled that this should even be a discussion, and that any of this should be even contemplated within the residential neighborhood that we live.
Thank you, Speaker. Your time is concluded.
Oh my fucking god, dude. Are you... Give me 1 second. Seriously, cat? Trying to take my fucking seat? I need a drink. Okay, so where do we even begin with that? So first off, it's offensive, it's appalling, you know, all that other fucking shit. That's just a bunch of grandstanding fucking nonsense. And you know, you might be wondering, you know, hold on, I'll get to that in a minute. But you know, and it's like, I can't even have an evening to myself. Are you fucking serious? There's 7 goddamn days in the week, lady. Surely you can find one of them fucking days to have an evening to your fucking self. That's number 1. Number 2, you know, if you knew that there was racing going on there, and you don't like, you know, the fact that, you know, the noise is so loud because, you know, oh my god, they're fucking racing engines, of course they're going to be loud. Why the fuck did you choose to move there to begin with? Not to mention the fact that this person, you know, doesn't seem to be a local from the area. She sounds like she's from Australia. So that's already a fucking irritant in and of itself, because of the fact that, you know, you moved here to the United States, to a place that is heavy in the motorsports world. You know, there's a lot of racing going on in the area, and you're seriously going to complain, you know, about the noise from a racetrack, you know, which has been there since before you were even a scratch in your dad's nutsack. Like, are you fucking kidding me? That's number 2. Number 3, and this is what really fucking pisses me off, okay? If you're going to complain about, you know, the motorsports that's around your area, maybe have your fucking facts in order before you make such a complaint. Because that fucking, and you saw that one guy kind of tilt his head at her when she said this. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And you might be asking yourself, well, why didn't anybody correct her? Well, apparently that wasn't allowed. Facts be damned, which I think is just fucking stupid shit. Because that's how misinformation gets out. This lady says that there are 5 NASCAR and Formula 1 tracks. Like, last time I checked, there were no Formula 1 tracks in Tennessee. I mean, there's one in Austin, Texas, and there's going to be one in Miami next year. They're going to be racing on the streets of Miami next year. That actually went through. But Tennessee, last time I checked, there wasn't a Formula 1 track. Now, to be fair, in this case, she is probably referring to the IndyCar race that's going to be on the streets of Nashville later this year. That's probably what she was referring to. Because, I mean, IndyCar and Formula 1 kind of look similar because they're both forms of open wheel racing. But there is a difference between IndyCar and Formula 1. And how they're built and all that other shit. But 5 perfectly operating NASCAR tracks other than Nashville. As far as I can tell, as far as my mind can remember, there's only 2 outside of Nashville that are in Tennessee that I can recall, and that's Bristol and the Nashville Super Speedway, which NASCAR will be going to later this year, replacing one of the Dover dates from last year. So if you're going to make a complaint about this sort of thing, make sure you have your fucking facts in order, okay? I mean, it's pretty clear that this person has no knowledge of motorsports whatsoever, no knowledge of any of the, you know, racetracks in the area, you know, what's actually in the fucking area, and she can't differentiate between Formula 1 and IndyCar. I mean, not to mention the fact that there's something up this woman's ass, you know, maybe she needs a fucking dildo, you know, extracted from her ass crack. I really don't fucking know, but I mean, some of the shit she was saying was just fucking nonsense. I mean, that's actually the first time I heard it, and I literally wanted to beat my fucking head against my desk. Like, that is some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my entire life. And it makes me fear for the future of the human race if that woman starts reproducing. Like, that is fucking nonsense, man. Like, if you don't like the fucking noise, here's a suggestion. Pack up your shit and move the fuck out. Not complicated, you know, thing to grasp. The track was there And there was actually someone else there who said the track was here long before anybody else was. And that got a standing ovation. And I'm like, bravo, people. Bravo, mister. Exactly right. So, that woman can fucking eat a dick. Because that's just nothing but a bunch of fucking nonsense. But yeah, talks are ongoing. And and if you read the tweets, and this was that was Matt Weaver's posting that. Of course, he's a pretty reliable guy when it comes to like motorsports news and shit like that. And the responses to it, you know, are like, holy shit. And then there was another thing that she said, that there are no other, you know, cities that have operating racetracks. Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Like, the town surrounding the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is literally called Speedway, Indiana. And people actually moved there because of the racetrack. Not to mention the fact that they also are able to, you know, make profits off of like parking and shit like that, because, you know, there are people who go to the racetrack that, you know, are looking for parking, and, you know, there are people who live there that advertise parking, you know, on their lawns and shit, and they make profits off of that. So that's a bunch of fucking nonsense too, what she said. Gonna complain about something, get your fucking facts in order. Fucking stupid. But that's basically what all went down this week. Man, we're already almost 40 minutes into this. We haven't even got to the damn review yet. But like I said, there was a lot to fucking talk about here. So let's go ahead and get into this review. Oh my god, that... Wow, that video gave me a fucking headache. Alright, so getting into the review itself. The 2021 Goodyear 400 at the Darlington Raceway. Stages broke down like this. Stage 1 was 90 laps, Stage 2 95 laps, Stage 3 108 laps. Two cars had to go to the rear of the field. She said for unapproved adjustments. Apparently they had like a packer in one of their springs that they had to remove, and that was an unapproved adjustment. And Eric Almirola also had to go to the rear for failing pre-race tech inspection, which I'm assuming is he failed twice. Brad Keselowski starts from the pole. He would not finish there, I'll tell you that much. I don't know what it is about Kes and Darlington, but I heard a very surprising statistic. I think it was one of the announced play-by-play guys that did it, that said it. I think it was Mike Joy, in fact. Kes had only finished, before this race, had only finished on the lead lap twice in 14 starts at Darlington. Wow. That's amazing to hear. So Kes leads lap 1. Harvick takes the lead from Kes in turn 4 for our first pure lead change of the day on lap 5. Then we have our first caution on lap 7. When Eric Almirola got loose off turn 2, got tagged. I think by the 47 car. And that's sent him into the inside wall, and it completely bent the front of the car to the point where the front tires weren't even touching the ground. So his day was done. So Harvick leads on the restart. Kyle Busch moves up to second on the restarts. Reddick and Hamlin get by Keselowski. Then Kyle Busch gets by Harvick for the lead as the 2 starts backsliding. So we had our second pure lead change on lap 14. Kyle Busch picking up right where he left off last week. Truex gets by Harvick for second. So at this point, the big 3 from 2018 is in the top 3. Then Truex challenges Kyle for the race lead, actually gets by him, but then before we had our third pure lead change, the second caution came on lap 23 when Kyle actually got loose and spun in turns 3 and 4 from the race lead because his, I think it was his right rear tire, unwound. Thankfully he didn't have that issue for the remainder of the race, so I think it was just a bad tire that he had. But yeah, that was a scary moment for him. But he was able to get it back going again. I think he finished in the top 5 in this race. Yeah, I think he finished 3rd, now that I remember. So, quite the recovery for him. Everyone comes in for service, obviously, because Darlington chews tires like no tomorrow. Truex wins the race off pit road, so he leads on the restart. Several cars got loose, including William Byron and Ryan Newman. They were slideways. Reddick and Hamlin get by Harvick for 2nd and 3rd. Reddick was pretty good early on, but he dropped back later in the race. Cole Custer pits on lap 53 for fresh tires, so they were kind of splitting the stages in half because fresh tires were much more important than fuel, which is a point that so stopping more than once was actually the way to go here because of the tire wear, as we would see at the end of this stage, which we'll talk about in a minute. Hamlin gets by Reddick for 2nd. Truex pits from the lead on lap 62. And Ross Chastain decides, you know what, we're going to play the long game and see what happens. Basically stay out on the older tires. This would not play out well for them at all. Truex got by Chastain to retake the race lead, which is not a pure lead change because of alternating strategies. 42 decides to stay out, play the long game. Their hope was to stay on the lead lap and have an extra set of tires. There was 3 wide in front of Truex. I bet he shit his pants at that point. Kez goes a lap down after starting from the pole. Reddick and Larson gets by Harvick for 3rd and 4th. And Chastain would go a lap down 2 laps from the end of the stage. And Truex wins stage 1 just barely over Hamlin, who was coming up hard from behind. Slipping and sliding away. So first stage was pretty interesting, I would say. Stage 2, on the other hand, not so much. Everyone comes in for service, and Truex wins the race off pit road. Stage 2, 95 laps. Larson gets caught speeding on pit road, so he had to go to the tail, but he would recover nicely. So Truex leads the start of stage 2. Got a great restart on the inside. The outside lane just didn't seem to have it on the restarts. We had our 3rd caution on lap 99 when Cole Custer has a hard crash into the backstretch wall after Anthony Alfredo gets loose in front of him in turn 2 and kind of comes down into the 41, which pushed him sideways and into the inside wall. Similar to what Almirola, his teammate, suffered in the first stage. So he was out of the race as well. Truex leads on the restart, but then we get another caution right away on lap 106. Thankfully, this is our final caution of the day. When Kurt Busch pounds the inside wall on the front stretch after getting loose off turn 4. And then getting a little tap from behind from Bubba Wallace, who received some damage. Initially, Bubba Wallace was the lucky dog car, but then NASCAR decided that since he was technically involved in the accident, because there was contact, they decided not to give the lucky dogs to Bubba Wallace, and this actually caused some disagreements from Jeff Gordon and Clint Boyer in the booth. They're like, we don't know if we really agree with that because the one was already loose before the 23 hit him. You know, it's whatever. Everyone comes in for service. Truex wins the race off pit road. Hamlin decides to stay out. Christopher Bell was penalized for speeding on pit road. Ouch. So Hamlin leads on the restart, but Truex easily gets by him for the race lead on the restart. Cats, calm down. Yo! Quit that. Freaking cats. So Logano gets by Hamlin for 2nd, as well as Kyle Busch and Byron. Looked like there was a little bit of contact between Blaney and Bowman, but this actually caused us some fender damage, and Bowman would have to pit for a possible flat tire. Everyone else starts trickling onto pit road not too long after. Truex pits from the lead with 41 to go for fresh tires. He cycles back with the lead. Hamlin gets by Logano for 4th, but Logano tries to fight back. Truex has an 8-second lead over Kyle Busch, who recovered nicely on lap 165. Kez with an unscheduled pit stop for flat tires, so his bad day continues. Hamlin, Logano, and Larson had a good fight for 4th, with Bell closing in on the battle as well. But Truex wins stage 2 by 14 seconds. I think a lot of us were thinking at this point, man, this is looking like a Truex raffle stomp. So, stage 3, 108 laps. I think it's a school bus. Stage 3, 108 laps. So Truex leads the start of stage 3. Kyle Busch ends up with some trash on the grill. Didn't really seem to do anything to the engine as far as temperatures are concerned, and they did get it cleaned off on pit stop, which there were actually 2 pit stops in this one because it was basically 100 laps to the end, and it was clean and green to the end. Eric Jones with a flat tire as well after smacking the wall. Logano and Larson start fighting hard for the 5th position. Truex with a 5.5 second lead with 75 laps to go. So, yeah, at this point it was looking like Truex wins Lowell. Green flag pit stops begin with 69 to go. Truex comes in the next lap. Bowman has a left rear tire rub and eventually cuts the tire down. There was a funny moment where Gordon and Boyer were like, is it down? No, it can't be down. It's got to be low air pressure. Oh, it looks like it's down. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, now it is down. So that was kind of funny. Kyle Busch has the lead down to 2.5 seconds after the pit stops because he stayed out because I came in a lap earlier. So it took advantage of the fresh tires, but couldn't close the gap. Larson actually gets by Kyle Busch at this point for 2nd. Logano and Byron kick off the final round of pit stops with 37 laps to go. So that just shows you how little, stuff happened at this point. But Logano gets caught speeding on pit road. Ouch. And then Truex cycles back with a 1.5 second lead with 35 laps to go. Again, pitted 1 lap later than everybody else. So you would think that the 1 lap advantage on the tires would mean a lot because, even just a little bit of an advantage means a lot at Darlington. Not the case though, because Larson actually started closing on Truex for the race lead. And at one point, Truex even came on the radio and was like, is that Larson? Yes, it was Larson, and he's right on your ass. He was up to Truex's bumper, was making several moves for the race lead. Couldn't quite get around him because Truex was doing some great stuff as far as defending. There was nearly a disaster between Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Hamlin, and Harvick. They were kind of all in a wad. How that was not a wreck, I'll never know. Hamlin smacks the wall in turn 2, but keeps it going. And then came what was probably the coolest moment of the race. Of course, it's the thumbnail for this review. Where Kyle Larson threaded the needle between Tyler Reddick and Ryan Newman, who went a lap down. They were on the tail end of the lead lap. Truex managed to get around both of them. And then Kyle Larson had to get around them. And he goes through the middle in turns 1 and 2. Through the middle of both of them, with I think Reddick up high and Newman down low. Threaded the needle right between them in the middle of turns 1 and 2 at Darlington. I'm not gonna lie, that was fucking cool. Like, that was a cool ass move to pull off. You know what I mean? But that just shows you, how much he wanted to win. I mean, what he was willing to go to, the lengths he was willing to go to get to Truex and pull the pass off. Like, that was a pretty awesome move. Unfortunately, it did not result in him winning because by the time, we got to the last couple laps, he had burned his tires off and Truex would pull away. Christopher Bell had a top 10 run going, but had to pit for a flat tire, so tough break for him. And Martin Truex Jr. wins the Goodyear 400 after leading 248 of the 293 total laps. Only 9 cars finished on the lead lap. I think mainly because there weren't that many cars on the lead lap at the start of stage 3. Like, only about half the field was on the lead lap. And then that long green flag run basically just separated everybody out. But give Kyle Larson credit, man. He made those last 25 laps really interesting in that battle for the lead. So, good shit from him. And I think sponsors are starting to warm up to him again. I mean, let's be honest here. Kyle Larson, he's definitely one of the best drivers in NASCAR. I mean, what happened last year, it is what it is at this point. I think it was just a Freudian slip at this point. So I think we can safely move on from it. Yo, cats, get away from the cord. Give me a second. Yo! What do you think you're doing? this little shitty. Messing with my Xbox cord. What do you think you're doing? Little shit. But anyways, as I was saying before, absolutely dominating performance by Truex. But I mean, Kyle Larson, I mean, we can get over what happened last year, I think. You know, it is what it is. It was a Freudian slip. So I think we can move on. So, statistics. Let's look at some statistics. Overall lead changes. There were actually 19 overall lead changes. I think a lot of them were under green flag pit stops, though. So, and I say that because there were only 2 total pure lead changes the entire race. The last one was all the way back at the beginning of the race. Once Truex took the lead, that was all she wrote. And then there were 4 total cautions the entire day. But the last one was in stage 2, and then stage 3 was clean and green the rest of the way. So like I said, very, very mixed bag in this race. So, race results. Truex, of course, with the win, like I said. Led 248 of the 293 laps. Got the perfect 60 because he won both stages and the race. There was also another stat buster that he hit. Ever since the implementation of stage racing, nobody had won a stage and the race at Darlington until Truex pulled it off. So there you go. Kyle Larson started 14th, ended up 2nd. Good run for him. Kyle Busch, nice follow-up to his win from last week at Kansas, finishing 3rd. William Byron, his 10th consecutive top 10 finish. So William Byron, a model of consistency right now. 10 top 10 finishes in a row. So I think Byron is really starting to come into his own in that 24 car. Denny Hamlin, another top 5 run. He has 9 top 5s, 9 top 10s in 12 races. No win yet, but I mean, when you're finishing in the top 5 as much as he is, a win is just around the corner. He's going to start winning races here real soon. Kevin Harvick, another top 10 run. Chase Elliott, he had to come back from having to start at the rear of the field. Ryan Blaney in 8th. Chris Buescher with a top 10. Nice run for him. He was the last guy in the lead lap. And Ryan Newman with a top 10. Even though he finished 1 lap down, he still got a top 10 result. So good job by Ryan Newman. Point standings. As we are a third of the way through the season. And that's not what I wanted. There we go. So, point standings. Denny Hamlin, of course, continues to lead the way. He has 9 top 5s, 9 top 10s, like I said. He's led the most laps of anybody this season with 749, but is yet to find victory lane. Truex, his teammate, has 3 wins on the year, but it's still 75 points out, so that just shows you how consistent Hamlin has been. Byron moves up to 3rd in points, so I think that's his highest points result so far, or his highest points position at this point. Logano is 4th, Ryan Blaney 5th, Kyle Larson in 6th. They have Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, and Kyle Busch rounding out the top 10. Then the rest of the playoff field: Christopher Bell, Austin Dillon, Chris Buescher, Alex Bowman, Michael McDowell, and Tyler Reddick. Those are your top 16 so far. And then right on the cusp is Matt DiBenedetto, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ryan Newman, and Kurt Busch, who did not have a good time of it in this race. As for my final rating for the Goodyear 400 at Darlington, like I said, it was a bit of a mixed bag. Like a lot of times, there was really nothing to talk about, like write notes and shit like that. And there was a lot of points during stage 2 and stage 3. But the slip sliding away from the drivers was pretty interesting, and there were some pretty interesting battles during this race, and that final 25 laps was pretty good as well. So overall, kind of a middle of the road race, but I'll say it was a hell of a lot better than last week, I'll tell you that much. So I will give this race a 5 on the fuel gauge, so a 5 out of 10. So wasn't the greatest race in the world, but it wasn't terrible either. So kind of right in the middle is where I'll put it. But that is going to do it for a very long review. There's a lot more shit to talk about this week than I thought there would be. But there was a lot of stuff to talk about. You know, a couple short tracks trying to find their way back onto the NASCAR schedule. Eddie Gossett retiring, and some other stuff to talk about as well. So, very, very interesting week. Formula One is off this week, so it'll just be NASCAR at Dover. Oh, whoop de fucking do there. At least it's the only Dover race this year. And then the next one after that is Circuit of the Americas. Of course, we're also going to be covering Formula One following week, which is the Monaco Grand Prix, the crown jewel of Formula One. So that's all coming up on the fuel. So, very long review. longest live review I think I've done this year. So, but like I said, lots to talk about. So that's going to do it for this edition of The Fuel. Thank you very much for watching. And until next time, this is the Packerman signing out. See you later.
Thank you for watching tonight's video. Be sure to like and subscribe, you rats!